Hello, everybody. Oh, I hope you're all doing well out there. We say hello to everybody. We got Catbot. Hello. Hello, Samantha. Hello, Teresa Cookie. Hello, Julie. Hello, David. Scott's Aquatics, how you doing? Ojisan Arts. Howdy, howdy. Oh, let me see here. Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody. How you doing, Tiger Lizzie? Hey, Tinra. Oh, and a 420 from David. Oh, man. Awesome. My camera looks choppy. Let me try to fix that real quick. Do. Yeah, it looks a little bit better. Not much. Whatever. How's everybody doing today? Oh. Hope you're all doing well. There we go. I don't have any stories planned or anything. Because, I mean, what kind of show would this be if I planned stuff? You know, because I don't. Ever. Hello, Holly Gibbs. How are you? It looks like our friend has updated the story with "We've been stationed on the moon since 1988. Who would like to continue that story? If anybody remembers, I'll post the link for part 1. It was a pretty captivating story. I enjoyed it. It was good fun. I think it was a little bit long, but yeah. So that was the first one. And he's done updates since then. I haven't really been on Reddit to see what is this? What's going on here? Whatever. Push it down. So let's see here. I can move over to the side. So we have $2 from OG-san. Thank you. Thanks for the camera help today. Oh, no worries, Bubba. One of these days, I'll have to get you in. I'll have to get you in Discord, and then we can discuss your settings, and maybe we can spruce it up so you can, see as well as I see. My upload is quite a bit higher than most people's, but we can, we can see what we can do from there. Um, so, okay, yeah, that music can stop. Thank you. All right. Um, so does anybody remember part one to that story? Do you want me to refresh your memories a little bit? Basically, new kid was scared they were going to the moon. They landed on the moon. He was walking him through orientation. He was a security guy, and they called him away. Come to find out, something had happened to one of the other stations, and everybody was dead except for one person. And that's pretty much where we stopped. So, how you doing, Yandere? Welcome. So that's where we were at. Let's see here. So I can read the last paragraph or so of that last story. But yeah, so the last part was oh geez, now the dog he's barking. Wonderful. He's gonna do that. But basically, let's see where I can pick up at. We boarded our buggy and immediately got a transmission from main bases. Buggy Zealot, do you copy? Yes, we made contact with Station 12. There were multiple casualties. But we're bringing back a survivor. Prepare the medical bay. Buggy Zealot, we've lost contact with Stations 4, 6, 8, and 9. We're reading multiple heat signatures on the surface. Return to Ares immediately. Wait. What the fuck's happening? There was a brief pause while I waited for the next transmission. Ares, you there? Then they said words I had dread the most since I was assigned to the project. A simple sentence that brought me years away from ever coming true. They're here. And that was the last so I just gave you the link if you want to check out part one. But here's the continuation of that. Well, anyways. And it's a little bit long, but it's not too bad. It's not as bad as the devil one. That one was wrong. Hey DMC, hey 44 Mad Guy. So let's we're just gonna pick up, and here's the story. Oh Jesus. Anyways, we might get some dog barking. I hope not. Jesus. Oh. Anyways. Mr. Soapbox Debris, how you doing? Alright, well, let's continue with part two. We've been stationed on the moon since 1988. There's a reason it has been kept secret. We tied the crew... I'm sorry. Those damn dogs. We tied the injured crewman to our buggy, making sure he didn't slip off as we sped back to base. What do you mean? How can they be here already? John asked over the radio. No response. Ares? Driving on the moon wasn't as easy a task at high speeds. With the craters, it was a bumpy ride, and the ever-present dust increased at the risk of sliding as we maneuvered towards the base. Buggy Zealot, we're initiating lockdown. Hangar 2 will remain open until you arrive. but we're putting you into quarantine. Understood? We'll be there in 10 minutes. I nervously scanned the horizon, looking for any sign of movement. Whatever creatures had been inside these pods, they had killed the entire crew aboard PAW Station 12. We saw more of them on the way. Each one of them were diamond-shaped, obsidian black containers made of bizarrely shiny material. They were covered in blister-like sacs, most ruptured, but some still intact, pulsating and twitching. They looked almost wet, but any liquid should have evaporated immediately as it hit the harsh vacuum of space. Here we go. Let's just put that. Oh, wait. There we go. That's a little bit better. We parked the buggy outside the hangar and lifted Frederick into the service airlocks. On the inside, we were met with the blaring sound of an alarm and a set of isolation capsules for each of us. On the other side of the airlock stood my supervisor. "We're going to need you to all get inside the capsules while we decontaminate the room," he ordered nervously. Lance Henderson was an abnormally calm individual, even at the most stressful of times. So to see him in the brink of panic alerted me to the true gravity of the situation. "Lance, it's true. Are they really here?" He nodded somberly. Not a word more needed to be said. I knew then that the next couple of days would decide the fate of not only us, but the rest of humanity. After we put ourselves into the isolation capsules, they prepared to move us to the med bay. "Do we have any footage from the PAW stations?" Lance shook his head. "Most of it got corrupted after the pods appeared on the moon's surface. We're trying to restore it. But I'm not too hopeful." "I'll let you know as soon as we find anything," he said. "I'll link up with you soon. Just do as the medics tell you." The medics carried my security team and I to an isolation room. Frederick, who'd sustained serious injuries to his neck, was put in a separate room next to us. It was a research facility, which meant it had glass walls for observation. There was no privacy as we got undressed and changed into sterile clothing. "You better tie him up. He's not himself," John said as the medics put Frederick in bed. By the time we'd been put in quarantine, the entirety of Ares had been put into complete lockdown. Anyone still outside the main base were on their own, behind, out of glass walls. We could see crew members rush around in panic, each trying to fulfill their duties at a record pace. All the while, alarms kept blaring. Orders were shouted through the speaker systems. We could do nothing but wait, uselessly stuck in isolation. Lance called me over the radio, briefing me on the situation. "Rick, we'll have your test results in an hour or so. In the meantime, we're trying to establish contact with anyone outside the main base. If they're still alive out there, we'll need to figure out a safe way to bring them inside." "Has anyone responded?" "No, but we've detected multiple heat signatures on the surface. A few of them match the crew's transponders. But," he trailed off. "But what?" "There are too many of them. We don't have that many people stationed on the moon." "It's them," I said, my voice filled with premature defeat. "Yeah. We've recovered some footage from Station 12. I'll send you the files." I turned to the computer mounted on the wall and typed in my credentials. A single video file had uploaded to my profile. A few minutes of salvaged footage. I hit play and prepared myself for the worst. What greeted us was an overhead view of Station 12's interior. only an hour before we entered. The crew relaxed in their leisure area, joking around and waiting for their shift to end. I immediately recognized Frederick standing in the corner, oddly quiet. He seemed to concentrate on something not visible on camera. "Hey, you guys hear that?" he asked. The crew fell silent, and all of them listened intently to their quiet surroundings. "Hear what?" "I don't know. It sounds like..." Without even finishing his sentence, Frederick grabbed a pin from a nearby table and started stabbing himself in the neck. Blood gushed from the wound, and the crew immediately rushed to pin him down. "What the hell are you... Stop that!" "Let me go. I need to do this," Frederick yelled in protest. "Get the goddamn zip ties. Boss, there's something outside." "What are you talking about?" After tying Frederick to the wall, the crew gathered to stare out the minuscule window, all of them in shock from what they saw. After a minute of disbelief, their boss grabbed the radio to alert Ares of the unidentified object. "Ares, this is Paul, Station 12. We found something on the moon's surface. I don't think it's of lunar origin." In response, they only got static. "Fuck! The radio's cutting out. Robbie, would you check the connection?" Without responding, the crewman walked over to his boss and stabbed him with a screwdriver. One of the others lifted his weapon in a hopeless attempt to de-escalate the station situation. "Drop the fucking screwdriver," he ordered. But instead of helping, he turned his weapon on himself, looking confused. Without hesitation, he shot his own leg. The rest of the crew scattered in disarray, some trying to help their boss, while others wanted to grab the gun from their coworker. The man with the screwdriver had already killed his boss. He had turned his attention to himself. He proceeded to repeatedly stab his own abdomen, crying as he did. One by one, they all fell to the same insanity. Within only a few minutes, every single crew member had succumbed to their wounds, all save for Frederick, who had been tied to the wall just in time to save his life. The footage cut off abruptly, and we all stood speechless in front of the empty screen. "What about the other stations?" John asked. "Do we really want to witness that again?" As we discussed the undeniable reality of the oncoming invasion, we started hearing groans coming from Frederick's room. He was waking up, luckily tied to the bed. "Where am I?" he asked. "You're safe, Frederick. The doc's in and is on his way. Just stay calm." "Oh, fuck. They're all dead," he sulked. "We should have given him more sedatives," John said. "Where's the goddamn doc?" Ares' head physician was a neuroscientist of advanced age. The rookie Daniel would be his new apprentice. By the time the doc eventually retired, he'd take over, specifically chosen for his job. They both arrived alongside Jennifer a few minutes later. We told him what had happened, and he suited up to go inside to examine Frederick. Lance finally returned after patrolling the area. He had locked down the entirety of our section and put guards on each airlock should someone break through. Staff was scarce, but each employee, guard, or scientist had been trained to deal with situations like these. "Dr. Livingston, they briefed you on the patient?" Lance asked. "Yes, I'm well aware of the situation," he stated matter-of-factly. "Daniel, join me inside. We're going to have to cut your training short." I've always thought hands-on experience worked the best anyways. Together they entered the isolated room. Jennifer stood guard outside, ready to interlude should Frederick fall into psychosis once again. What followed was a barrage of uncomfortable but necessary questions. Frederick, who had attempted to kill himself only hours earlier, was undoubtedly shook from the experience, but whatever trance he had been in, had long since passed. Halfway through the examination, another alarm sounded through the base. Atmospheric breach in Section 9. All personnel must evacuate the area immediately. Lance immediately reached for his radio, demanding an explanation. Section 9, this is Security Chief Henderson. What the hell's going on? Someone just blew up one of the fucking airlocks, a voice screamed from the other side. They took explosives from the factory. Who? I don't fucking know who. We tracked the transponder from PAW Station 7. We tried contacting them over radio, but he ignored us. Is the breach sealed? Lance asked. Yeah, but half my team died in the vacuum. The rest of us are about to suit up in case the seal fails. But I don't know. He paused, and a loud hammering noise could be heard through the radio. Oh my God. They're coming in through the seal. Everyone, get the hell out of... What followed was a vague crashing sound before the call got interrupted. Damn it, I've got to go. Jennifer, stay here and help the doc, Lance said. Absolutely not, I'm coming with you. They'll need all the help they can get, she argued. And what about us? I asked. Sorry, Rick. You'll have to stay in isolation until the tests come back. Don't worry. They'll come let you out as soon as possible. The two of them rushed down a long hallway towards Section 9, while we remained trapped with no chance to help. Daniel and Dr. Livingston finished examining Frederick and called for some tests to be rushed through. 20 agonizing minutes passed. As we waited for any updates on the situation, the occasional bang was the only thing to keep us company as it echoed through the outer hull of Ares. Over the radio, I could hear requests for additional security coming in from various sections around Ares. It was a call no one had the capacity to answer, and I felt utterly useless, stuck in isolation. Then, we heard the sound of multiple footsteps rushing down the hallway. Stay with me, Jennifer shouted. They rushed past us, carrying 2 stretchers. One of them lay Lance, bleeding profusely from multiple gunshot wounds to his abdomen. Jennifer, what happened? I asked in shock. She ignored me, and they brought the injured crew into a separate room. Though we couldn't directly see them, we could hear the utter horror in their voices as they fugitively tried to stop the bleeding. It was a hopeless case, and from prior experience I knew Lance wouldn't make it. Only minutes later, he had bled out. Jennifer came over to our room, staring at me through the glass. Her eyes were red from a mixture of panic and despair. Jen, is he dead? I killed him, she uttered. You did what? He just went crazy, she continued. We were investigating the broken seal, even with the hole secured. Something got through. Every single person who hadn't got out of Section 9 died instantly. How many? 37. Jesus Christ. She sobbed for a moment before continuing, her blood-covered hands visibly shaken from the ordeal. As we suited up, Lance said he heard something. I had already gotten my helmet on, couldn't hear what he was talking about. But then another loud bang could be heard, followed by an alarm. Whatever things are killing our people, they were getting into the station. He shot the others point blank. He would have killed me too. I didn't have a choice. I had to defend myself. I only wanted to stop him. But the first bullet didn't even faze him. He just kept pulling the trigger until he dropped his weapon. I killed him. It was me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We didn't get a chance to continue the conversation before the medics came and let us out. Even without conclusive test results, we had been ordered to evacuate the area. The entire crew aboard Ares were pulling back into Section 5, the central and most secure hub of the station. They're closing all doors in 5 minutes. We've got to go now, one of them ordered. With no time to suit up, we started rushing towards Section 5, ready to fight whatever creatures had entered the station. I just don't understand. They weren't supposed to be here for another 5 years. How's it possible? Jennifer asked. No idea. It doesn't make any sense. On our way, we passed numerous lockdown sections, all breached and their atmosphere replaced by an empty vacuum, housing little more than dust and corpses of deceased crew. Multiple distress calls emitted from my radio, but we couldn't do anything to help any of them. All we could do was hope that as many people as possible made it to Section 5, where we'd organize a fight against the invaders. Rick, you there? Please respond, a voice said over the radio. I recognized the voice. It belonged to one of the senior security guards, Brandon Clifford. I'm here. We're en route to Section 5. Are you safe? Forget Section 5. We need you and the doc to come to the main lab immediately. The lab? Why? He paused for a moment, letting out a half chuckle. We got one of them. So that was part 2. Tomorrow I'll do part 3. So, how's everybody doing? Hope you're all well. Oh no, earthquake! Earthquake! Cables sticking everywhere. Well, there you go. You got my tax reporting statement. Good job. Good job, camera. Jesus Christ. HDMI cable. There we go. We're good. Oh. All right, well, let's find another story. Hope you're all doing well. You know, it'd be grand if I could find. Oh, Bert, where you at? Bert. Oh, Bert, where you go? Where'd you go, Bert? Where'd you go, buddy? I don't know. You know how it feels to wrestle your cables? Yeah, I don't always wrestle my cables, but when I do, it's when I'm trying to stream. I'm always trying to find my Burt's Bees. And all the mail on my desk. I don't know where my Burt's Bees is. Alright, let's try something. Let's take these. Said I was going to do those today, but did not. And this, and this. Okay. So I got a site visit tomorrow, an in-face interview. Pretty stoked about that. That should be good times. Finding thumb drives that I don't need, so that's kind of cool. Oh, there it is. Bert was hiding, but guess what? We got the Burt's Bees. Just put it on your lips just like this. Interview, say that again. Yeah, just an interview. We'll see how it goes. I'll let y'all know. What the shit? Let me look at no sleep. There we go. Oh. Oh, let's find a good story. You know the good stories because they got lots of upvotes. The old Reddit circle jerk. It's funny. I cannot hear you. You talked about tomorrow. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we'll see. It's a job. Hopefully I get it. David, if you want to buy them for me and send them to me, I'll read them. I don't want to leave my house. Let's do top. What is this one? I got a text message. Oh, jeez. Jesus. Hey, Loic, how you doing, bud? All right. I might have a story here. What is this one? Oh, Jesus, that's a long one. How about you break that shit into fucking Jesus, that was a long ass story. Maybe the previous tenant of my new flat left a survival guide. I'm not sure I want to live here anymore. We'll give this a read. This seems fun. Let's move right back over to Sean. Alrighty. Hopefully y'all can hear me just fine. I'll give you guys the link if you'd like to upvote the stories. Or read them. Because I'm not that great, words are hard, okay? But without further ado, this is my previous tenant. The previous tenant of my new flat left a survival guide. I'm not sure I want to live here anymore. I moved in with my boyfriend yesterday. We've been together for 5 years now, and we're old and wise enough to settle down and finally leave our parents' houses. He just turned 24 and I'm 22. He's the love of my life. His name is Jamie, and I couldn't be any happier to be living with him. When we decided to make the leap, we spent 2 months looking at flats and houses. We couldn't afford to buy yet, so renting was our only option. But the prices were astronomical. For our budget, we would have been lucky to get a box room and a stove. Jamie works for a local 24-hour fast food restaurant, and I'm training to be a teacher. Early stages of training don't pay much, and I owe a lot in student loans. So finances are tough. We'd almost given up hope until we found our flat. It was nothing special, but to us, it was a palace. A spacious 2-bedroom apartment with views of City Park, a balcony, and local conveniences. It was in a tower block, in a not-so-nice area, but neither of us had been wealthy growing up. We weren't fussy, just grateful to be together. The advert was sweetened by the deposit-free option and open-ended tendency. The landlord was happy to sign a 5-year contract if we wanted. That sort of thing never happened in the city. We were told that along with no deposit, we would also have no inspections, but would be liable to pay for any damages when we ended the tenancy. We'd never heard anything quite like it. We knew that for our budget and location, we weren't going to get any better. We snapped the place up fast, not even bothering to view it. It felt like our only chance. Move-in day rolled around quickly, and yesterday we got the keys to our first home together. It was such a strange feeling. The day was chaos, getting our stuff in, up in the lift. We were flat number 42 on the 7th floor. The items we couldn't get in the lift had to be taken up the stairs by the removal men. I think they were grateful we weren't any higher, but I still wish we had been able to give them a better tip. In the evening, we settled down on our second-hand sofa, given to us by a cousin of a friend, and watched some TV. We smoked cigarettes on the balcony, looking at the park, and fell asleep on our mattress on the floor, super early, because we had no energy to put together the bed, and Jamie had to be at work at a hideous time in the morning. We slept soundly last night. I felt safe and happy. I don't think that feeling is coming back anytime soon, and it's all due to the note I found this morning. I found it in the kitchen having coffee, hours after Jamie had left for his early shift at work. It was in one of the cupboards that were fixed to the wall. There were a bunch of useful items from previous tenants. Spare keys, a set of tiny keys that locked and unlocked windows, necessary for those with kids this high up. Spare smoke alarm batteries and folded up piece of paper. The note was handwritten with "New occupier of flat 42" in beautiful cursive on the outside. I opened it up and sat down to read. I can't really describe to you, so I'm going to copy it out below. Dear new occupier, firstly, welcome to your new home. I lived here before you for 35 years with my husband. Unfortunately, we had an incident at home recently that I'd rather not discuss that claimed his life. My sister has now decided I can't sleep. I can't keep up with the demands of the property and has insisted that I move in with her and her husband. I was reluctant at first, but the stairs do kill me at my age without Bernie. It's filled with sadness. Anyway, when you'd lived somewhere for as long as I have, it feels like a person that you know. You understand its personality and what makes it tick. I thought it was probably pertinent that I impart some of the knowledge on you. It's a wonderful home, honestly. I have lived through the best and worst years, and leaving it all behind is very emotional. But if you were to survive and get the best out of it, then there's some steps you need to follow. 1. The landlord will never bother you. He doesn't visit, call, or communicate in any way. But make sure you pay your rent in a timely fashion always. I have only dealt with him once in 35 years, and let's just say I'll never miss another rent day. Any repairs required, you speak to the agent you rented the place with. 2. Do not use the communal lift between 1:11 and 3:33 a.m. Just don't do it. This step is vital if you're to have a happy life here. It really is life or death. Don't do it. This has cost me many others in the building greatly, and I would rather not elaborate on why you should do this. Just please don't do it. I cannot stress this enough. 3. When you hear the strange animal noises coming from flat 48, don't question it. Mr. Prentice lives there, and he's a lovely chap. Don't be afraid to say hello to him in the corridor or on the stairs. He's old school, so he never risks the lift. But whatever you do, don't check on him when you hear the noises. You'll know when you hear them. 4. If you ever come across a window cleaner on the balcony, ignore him. He may seem like the nicest fellow you've ever had trying to sell you something at your door, but it really is best that you don't engage. He will go away if you ignore him, but he tries pretty hard the first few times, so you'll need some resilience. Whatever you do, don't offer him anything. No money, no hot drink. 5. Don't leave food scraps out. Bin or refrigerate them immediately. If you have small animals, it's imperative that you watch them eat and take away any leftover food immediately after they're done. This and Rule 2 go hand in hand. The things forage all day and seem to really love animal feed. You don't want them in your flat, I promise. You can leave whatever you want out between 1:11 a.m. and 3:33. So you may not want to feed your pets then. Six, don't communicate with any neighbors who claim to come from flats 65 through 72. These flats suffered fire in the late 80s that devastated the whole floor. All the residents died in their homes. The building was mostly council owned at the time, and they never bothered to renovate the flats. They've been empty ever since, but every now and then someone will knock at your door claiming to live in one of these flats and ask to borrow some sugar. They will seem entirely average, but you must shut and lock the door immediately. I installed 2 extra security bolts to avoid these fuckers. I don't like to swear at my age, but they really are fuckers. 7. Simple. One for you here. Keep a weapon in each room. Sometimes you follow all these steps and something still slips through the net. Better be safe than sorry. Number 8. The building has a committee that will try to get you to join. If one of those neighbors groups about improving living conditions for all residents, it's a nice group, and the lady who runs it, Terry, from flat 26, a fantastic neighbor. But by all means get involved. By all means get involved. But I wouldn't recommend babysitting Terry's 2 children. She'll ask you, because the poor woman needs a break. But if you accept, don't say I didn't warn you. Number 9. Stray hairless cats sometimes roam in the hallway. I know they're supposedly a special, expensive breed, but they don't belong to anyone. They're mostly harmless, but don't pick them up. Not unless you see one of the neighbors that claims to live in 65 to 72. Then grab the cat and lock it inside with you. It'll burn your skin a little, but the cats are friendly and I wouldn't want to see them hurt. Number 10. There is no way to fix the damp patch on the ceiling in the bedroom. Sometimes it will turn a deep crimson and look quite concerning, but please do not try to be alarmed. It doesn't drip. It doesn't get any bigger. It's been there longer than I have. The landlord won't budge on it. According to the agents, I flagged it many times, even called the police the first night it changed color, but it was a waste of time. And it will be for you too. It's best to ignore it. Number 11. You can trust the postman. His name is Ian Flanders, and he's been the postman since before I moved in. He has his own key to the mail door and delivers post to the door every morning at 8:45. I can't include everything here, or it would become a novel. If you have any questions, Ian will help you. 12. Finally, the first few weeks are the worst. You'll feel like you've made a mistake. I'm sure reading this, you already do. But if you can get through the first few weeks, it really is a lovely block to live in. Every property has its quirks, and this one is a little extra special. But you can truly be happy here if you just take my advice. I wish you all the best, I really do. Yours truly, Miss Prudence Hemmings. I don't really know what to think after reading the note. Hopefully, it was some sort of joke. But the agent had said the previous tenant was an elderly lady, and I can't see anyone named Prudence Hemmings attempting to play practical jokes on someone they'd never met. There was also parts of the note I couldn't disprove. There was indeed a large damp patch above the bed that me and Jamie had already discussed reporting. No crimson, but it definitely existed. It had also commented on a beautiful Sphinx cat roaming the halls as we were moving in. I started to get seriously freaked out. Our dream, our beautiful little home, had just become a source of fear and confusion. I checked the time and it was 9:14. Damn it. Out of time to catch the postman Ian. When I opened the door to check, sure enough, 2 letters addressed to Miss Hemmings sat on the doorstep. At about 11:15, my worst fears were truly confirmed when a friendly middle-aged man carrying window cleaning equipment knocked on my balcony door. I ignored him, but I didn't want to take the risk until I'd spoken to Jamie and showed him the note. I texted him already to rush home. I felt bad as the man rapped his knuckles against the door for over 10 minutes, but honestly, the longer it went, the more I was terrified. My windows were sparkling, and due to our lack of curtains, I couldn't even hide from his gaze. I felt so exposed. He stayed for a total of 30 minutes exactly, and never once did he stop looking at me or knocking. He shouted the occasional ultra-friendly line or humble request for a beverage in the heat through the door, but I did my best to avoid eye contact. When he finally left, I looked outside every window in the flat, but I couldn't see him on any of the other balconies or see any equipment suggesting he was around. He had vanished completely. Jamie still hadn't texted me back. He must have been having a rough shift. It was a Friday and they were always busy. It wasn't often that he didn't reply. He was due home in around an hour anyways. I read the note probably hundreds of times over. I tortured myself reading it for the next hour, desperately waiting for Jamie to come through the door to tell me it was all crazy and I should relax. I hoped for that so much, but Jamie never came. His shift should have finished around midday, but by 2 p.m. he still wasn't home. I panicked. I cried. I left over 100 voice messages on his phone but got nowhere. I finally decided it had been long enough that calling his work wouldn't embarrass him, and his boss told me that he never turned up for his shift. I thought about it. What could have happened? And then it hit me. Jamie's shift started at 4 a.m. today. He would have left the flat at 3:15 and taken the lift down the stairs. I don't know what to do. I've tried to convince myself it was just a big joke. Maybe Jamie wrote the note and got his boss in on it. A little voice in my head kept telling me he couldn't write that if he tried. But I had to attempt to fool myself. It's getting late and he still isn't home. What if it's all true? I think we made a big mistake. So that was that one. And it continues. Oh, that one's a healthy one. Did y'all like that? I'll never remember all these rules. Can I get a copy? Sure. Scroll up. The rules are right there in the link. That was sad. But you're laughing? Sup? I don't know. Sup with you? Hopefully everybody's doing well. I got 2 stories and we're at an hour. We're just doing long stories today. You liked it? Would you guys like the next part of the story? I'm just gonna wait until y'all answer. How about I take a quick break? Go get some water. I don't think I want to smoke though. So it shouldn't be long. But maybe I will. I do laugh at bad times. Aww. It happens. So yeah, let me take a quick break. I'll go burn one. I'll wick the dig. Oh. And then, I don't know, we'll maybe tell the second and third part of that story. So, let's play some music. Alright, be right back. I don't know if I got any of you, but whatever. It was fun for me. Was it good for you? It was great for me. All right. So y'all want to hear the second part of that story? Maybe. Just maybe. Call me. Oh, let's see. There we go. All right, well, let's, I don't know either. But I will start the next story. Hey, Blue Jay Jitsu. How are you? All right, well, we've got the second part of the previous tenet of my new Flat Left to Survival guide. I think I'm gonna need more than a guide. This is part 2. Here is das Link. Let's start, shall we? Let's lube our lips. Oh. Oh. That's good stuff. Oh, I'm good too. Thank you. Thank you. I've been jobless for a couple weeks, but I got a job interview tomorrow, so. But anyways, I don't want to dwell on it. All right. Well, where we left off, our young heroine, or maybe dude, I don't know. I'm progressive. I'm not here to judge. The boyfriend had went to work at 4 a.m. Closer to 3, I believe. That's what it was. I don't know. What did it say? What time? Yeah, 3:15. So he's nowhere to be seen. Here's the next part of that story. So much has happened in the last 24 hours. I'm so stressed, and I've barely slept since. I've discovered that Jamie was missing. It's starting to make me feel a little twitchy, but I thought I'd better update you guys. I was overwhelmed by all the suggestions you gave me, and I've taken more than a few of them on board. I'm definitely going to be getting a huge planter full of sage for the balcony. And I did spill a little salt on my doorway. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but that didn't help at all. There's nothing I'm following quite like Miss Hemming's rules. I follow them to the letter so far, and lo and behold, I'm still alive. That's not to say it hasn't been tough. I'll start from the beginning. I was going crazy. After a few hours after my last post, Jamie still hadn't returned. He had been gone for almost 24 hours. His work had called me many times. I don't know what to say, so I just keep ghosting the calls. I was bang in the middle of danger time when I decided checking the lift had to be my first step. But I wasn't going to break that rule. I waited. I waited desperately for 3:34 to come And I'm ashamed to say that when I did, I remained paralyzed to our sofa for almost half an hour before I found the nerve to leave the flat. It was 4:02 when I finally reached the lift. The lift in this bustling, old and rickety. The lift in this building is old and rickety. It hasn't been updated in a very long time and has likely been here as long as the building. It's big. Clunky buttons stared back at me as I glared at them, hoping for some sort of answer or clue. My heart thumped, and I was overcome with a feeling of dread, but nothing came of it. It was hopeless. I stepped inside the lift, rode it up and down a few floors, and searched the entire perimeter with the phone torch for anything I could find. I found nothing. Jamie had completely disappeared. Sobbing and exhausted, I rode back to floor 7 and turned my key to flat 42, the perfect home that felt anything but home at this point. I sat in the cheap, flat, black dining table we'd managed to put together on moving in day and cried, my hands shaking as I held my phone. I was flitting between reading all of your comments and contemplating calling the police for an hour. But I decided to call my friend, Georgia, instead. I needed a real person here. Things are so crazy. I wasn't sure the police would be able to help me with little information I had. But I knew that I needed to sound it out with somebody. I'll spare you the details again, but I told her everything. She had promised she'd be with me in the late morning. She had to take her younger brother to school. I waited anxiously, not before arming every room exactly as advised. Before I knew it, I looked at the clock and it was 8:23. I had around half an hour until the postman was due to show up. There was no way I was missing him today. I stood by the door looking vacantly at the wood like someone in a film who was possessed. The exhaustion was really setting in, but Jamie was all I could think of. Pure adrenaline was keeping me standing. At 8:52 I opened the door. The next 2 minutes were the longest of my life. But when I saw him, a wave of relief swept my entire body. Right on cue. 8:54, the postman, Ian Flanders, stood in front of me. A smile that barely hid his concern covering his younger than expected face. He didn't look old enough to have been the postman for over 35 years. But I was too distracted by the answers that I needed to care. "You must be the new tenant," he stated, but in a way that sounded like a question. I struggled with my answer, so I got straight to the point. "Miss Hemmings left me a note. She said to speak to you if... Can I come in, dear? I think we need to chat." I ushered Ian in, my hands still shaking as I flapped them in the direction of the sofa, gesturing him to sit down. I shoved the now slightly crumpled note into his lap and waited. "I'm glad Prue still thinks that highly of me. I will miss that old girl," he said with a coy smile as he reached the end of the note. "Can you help me or not?" I had no time for his ego trip over a moved-on neighbor. "I can help, but I can't stay for long, so I have to be quick. I've walked these halls delivering post for 40 years. I've seen it all. Everything Prue's mentioned and more." "What do you need to know?" he said. Ian was nothing like what I expected. The note made me feel like he was going to be kindly, an old grandpa type figure. But I couldn't have been more wrong. Postman Ian spoke with a thick city accent and wore a heavy gold chain around his tattooed neck. He had dyed his graying hair boot polish black. His demeanor was thankfully non-threatening, but extraordinarily cocky. He was the sort of man I imagined in a betting shop, rubbing his grubby hands on the notes as he bragged over a win. He didn't ask as he lit a cigarette in my living room. I didn't question it. We would have usually smoked outside, but I wasn't going to argue over technicalities. I grabbed a bowl for an ash and lit one too. Let's start with the things in the lift. My boyfriend is missing, and he took the lift at 3:15, 24 hours ago. We hadn't got this note yet. I haven't heard from him since. I need to get him back, I barked at him, as if the louder I spoke, the more I can influence his answer. But nothing prepared for me what he was going to say. His skin turned pale, and his harsh-looking face became more sympathetic as he explained. He's dead, love. Forget about him now. Only one person has ever come back from the lift at that time of night, and it was Prue herself. After witnessing it, those creatures ripping their victims apart, poor Prue was traumatized. Your boy's gone. Let him go. And follow the rules. He was blunt, but I could tell he felt sorry for me. There must be something I can do, I pleaded. There are things that I heard bring back those who are lost, but I've never seen solid proof they work. It would be irresponsible of me to tell you something that might get you killed too. It's nice here, honest. Just get over him and live the status quo. Sorry if I sound so harsh, I don't mean to. But you seem like a decent young lady, and I don't want to see you go so soon. I asked him about Miss Hemmings had seen in the lift, and if they were sure it happened to all who entered it. I refused to believe that Jamie was dead. There had to be something I could do. If I knew what I was dealing with, I could be better prepared. It was awful what happened. I wasn't there. But this is what I was told. Little Lydia was such a cute kid. She used to open the door and give me a tip when I delivered the post. She was Prue's granddaughter. Laya was her son's little girl, and that night she was staying over for the first time. Prue finally felt confident that she could protect Laya from all the strange things that happened here. She was wrong. Little Laya had a problem with sleepwalking, and she took a trip in the hallway at 1:30 in the morning. Prue took a little too long to notice the sound as she heard with the front door. By the time she reached the lift, she saw the creatures dragging Leah's limbs away from her body. She tried to fight them, even killed one, but she couldn't save the little girl. I was hysterical, imagining Jamie's fate. What are these creatures? Have you ever actually seen them? I asked. No one really knows what they are, love. There's something to do with the building and all its quirks. No one's seen them elsewhere. We don't know where they came from. That they're just here. I've seen them a few times over the years. Usually, when new neighbors have left biscuits down for the cats and dogs, or haven't disposed of food waste properly. They're curious little creatures, mostly harmless, out of the hours Prue warned about. But if they're fed, they can become quite vicious looking for more food. That's why you'll have to bin all your scraps, or hide them, or pack them, or whatever. Just don't leave them out, and don't use the lift at those times, and you'll be safe from the creatures. They're a little smaller than humans, but they're a similar shape. They come with grotesque, rodent-like features, and are far larger than any rodent could be. Like rodent children, I suppose. They have 2 sharp rows of teeth per jaw, and constantly hungry. When they eat, they crunch down in a violent and disgusting way, dripping spittle everywhere. Prue says she could hear her granddaughter's bones shatter in those jaws. He went pale with the thought of that, but continued. When they first arrived in the building, there were hundreds. It caused pandemonium amongst the residents. We lost the residents, more than 30 individual homes. But the residents fought back and managed to kill all but the strongest minority of them. The creatures left over were incredibly dangerous and seemingly impossible to eradicate. So the residents struck a deal that they will be left unharmed and allowed to live in the building in return that the residents will be allowed to live in the building in return for the residents' safety at all times. But if anyone wanders into the lift between 1:11 and 3:33 a.m., they're fair game. This time frame is the period that creatures are most frenzied, and restricting them to the lift was safer for all parties. God help anyone who encounters them during these hours. They've been here ever since, claiming lots of unsuspecting people, avoiding the stairs, but nothing like when they first arrived. A few got put down for not holding up their end of the bargain, but we haven't had an incident outside the lift in years. Count yourself lucky if you missed the crisis. Everything here's pretty peaceful now. I'm sorry about your boyfriend. I really have to go. I'm late for my round. He scrawled his phone number on a bit of paper and handed it to me. Emergencies only. I don't like to be bothered. You can't go. The note said you would help me, I exclaimed. And I will, he snapped back. When there's something I can help with. I can't resurrect your boyfriend, and I don't like to be late delivering the post. I will see you soon, love. I was in shock. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I couldn't believe he was leaving me after the information overload. A small ray of hope he had lit inside me and then squashed. I'll call the police, I shouted, desperate to feel as if solving this somehow. You can try if you want to, Ian sighed as he opened the door to leave. It just aggravates the creatures, and it isn't going to bring your boyfriend back. Mr. Prentice hates it when the police come too. If you want to get any sleep in the next week, then I'd avoid it. Wait a week. Report him missing and learn to adapt to life here, love, or you'll be dead in days. With that, he shut the door behind him. I opened it again. I had so much to ask, but he was gone. No sign of him anywhere in the corridor. Maybe it was me losing my mind. I might be imagining all these things, but no matter how much English, but no matter how much I willed with the note, no matter how much I willed it, the note was still there, and Jamie wasn't. Georgia arrived not long after Ian left, of course, asked if she had seen him in the corridor, to try and affirm myself that he was real, but she hadn't. She looked at me worried and told me as I sobbed and told her what the postman said about Jamie and the creatures. I wasn't sure she would believe me. Even so, she read the note. She looked skeptical. If she was skeptical, I wouldn't have blamed her. She had always been supportive. She sat with me for hours while I just sobbed, heartbroken. I was so conflicted, not conflicted, my apologies. I was so conflicted as to what to do. It felt insane that I hadn't contacted anybody. But this note had turned out to be too accurate so far. And the postman was to be trusted, so then I should wait. Georgia had been my best friend for many years. She stuck up for me when I was too scared to do it myself, and always been the brave one out of the two of us. I felt safe with her around. So after hours of crying and despairing at the way my life had changed in a matter of days, I finally decided to take a nap. It was early evening and Georgia was watching some TV. Just there for me if I needed her. Despite the deprivation, I struggled to fall asleep. I tried to imagine Jamie's arms around me, but it became more painful a reminder that they will probably never be again. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity of staring at a damp patch on the ceiling, I drifted off. About 3 hours ago, I woke up, staring at the goddamn damp patch on the ceiling, and could hear chatting in the living room. I jumped out of bed and walked towards it. Georgia was on the sofa with a middle-aged looking woman nursing a cup of tea and the matching mugs that Jamie had got me as a move-in present. My blood boiled, but it wasn't their fault. I cleared my throat to get their attention. "Oh, Katie, this is Natalia. She lives upstairs. We got to chatting, so I made her a cup of tea. I hope you don't mind." I looked at the dark-haired woman on the sofa drinking the tea from my cup and nodded. Georgia was a sociable idiot with no understanding of when not to be herself. I wasn't going to lament her for this right now. It was her coping. "Of course. Hi, Natalia. What flat do you live in?" I tried my very best to be polite. I would have to discuss not bringing people into my home mid-tragedy with Georgia after she had left, but until then, I could be neighborly. "Flat 71. It's so nice to meet you. You have a lovely home," Natalia responded, her lips curled at the corners into a smile that was replicated in her eyes. The rest of her facial... Natalia responded, her lips curled at the corners into a smile that wasn't replicated in her eyes or the rest of her facial expressions. She looked at me smugly, with full knowledge that I was aware of the implications of what she had just said. The rules. The flat number. Every now and then, someone will knock on your door claiming to live in one of these flats and ask you to borrow some sugar. They will seem entirely average, but you must shut and lock the door immediately. I installed 2 extra security bolts to avoid these fuckers. I don't like to swear at my age, but they really are fuckers. Prude's warning echoed in my mind, and I couldn't take my eyes off Natalia. Something really was off about her. I looked at Georgia sat on the sofa next to her and noticed her sweating. Anyone in the UK knows that it's been hot for a few days, but this was just beyond ambient temperature. Her body was dripping. Suddenly she began to pant. Natalia's eyes were locked to mine, just like the window cleaner's had been. Nothing happened before with the cleaner, except this time the rule had been broken. She was already in the flat. Georgia started to scream. Her skin blistered and charred. Her hair fell from her scalp as the skin flaked and melted away from every inch of her. She was being burned alive without the flame in sight. She scratched frantically at her own melting face, digging into the exposed raw flesh. The sound a person makes when they burn alive is like no other. That will never leave me. I screamed and screamed, but no one came to my door. I grabbed my phone to call the postman Ian, but the wooden surface I had set it down on burned my fingers to the touch and forced me to recoil. She was going to set the whole flat alight. My actions needed to be quicker than a phone call. I grabbed a hold of a large knife, and I had sat down on the side earlier when weaponizing. The handle blistered my fingers instantly, but I didn't care. I needed to get her out and help Georgia if I could. I ran towards the dark-haired lady, sweat dripping from my brow. The closer I got and plunged the knife into Natalia's throat, she gripped it and fell to the floor. She didn't bleed like a normal human. Her insides were black. She was still moving, and I figured it probably wouldn't be long before she stood right back up and tried again. So I dragged her into the hallway, ready to bolt the door. As we reached the entrance of the corridor, one of the cats was waiting, hissing at her semi-conscious body. I caught her eyes fixate as I dumped her on the floor. I grabbed the cat, pulled it inside, wincing as the skin caused more bumps on my lower arms. Shut the door as I watched through the peephole. She got up and held her hand to the wound, cauterizing it, and walked off towards the lift as if she hadn't been injured at all. I dropped the cat by that point, but every bit of naked skin that I had touched throbbed and burned for at least an hour. Georgia hasn't been as lucky as Natalia with injury recovery. I anonymously called an ambulance for her. I couldn't believe it, but she was still breathing. She was badly burned, and her life wouldn't be the same again, but she was alive, and for that I was grateful. It sounds awful, but I left her at the park across the road from the building with no phone or ID. She's my best friend, and I want to be there. But if I own up to my involvement in her injuries that bad, they'll suspect me. And I lose the already slim chance that Jamie still might be savable. It doesn't mean I don't care about Georgia, but she was alive. I won't believe Jamie isn't until I see it. So now I'm alone again in the flat, conflicted about what to do. I want to leave so badly. But this was mine and Jamie's first home together. If he's alive, I can save him. Then I want to be here for him to come back too. If he's dead and the postman is right, then I don't know if I can leave this memory behind. There's only one person I can think of that might help me right now. So tonight, I'm gonna do some research, hunt down an address, and tomorrow morning I'm gonna visit Prudence Hemmings. Oh, we got some more people in here. Hey, Erie, Hat Trick Farm, how you doing? Ross Spence, hell yeah, I missed you. How are you guys doing? How's everybody? Hopefully, besides my terrible reading, y'all enjoyed that story. There is one more. There is the part 3 to it. Yeah. I hate to leave in the middle of a story, but there's some stuff I gotta do. I'll watch this story back later. Have a good day, Chappy in chat. Hey, Pam. Did you say hi to me? Was Pam in here earlier? I see Pam in here now. At Chappy. I got like my fidget spinners are packets of things. But there was one packet. No, that's soy sauce. There was one packet that Yeah, I found it. Alright. I'm doing okay, Phil. Having trouble with my stupid truck. What's wrong with your truck? I'm not only good with technology, but vehicles too. So grab a 7/16 size right. Oh, poor Pam. So we got Uno Mas' story to this. Do you guys want to hear it? Looks like I'm wearing a chin strap. It stops cleanly, like right there. So I don't have a neck beard. That's good. I still have to mail your package, Phil. Got to hold my breath and hope my truck makes it to the town again. It's making all kinds of horrible noises in the front end. Engine-y noises? Pam, I think driving it might be worse for your truck. Are they creaky noises or engine-y noises? Yeah, that's important. Gotta check your oils. If it's an automatic, you got transmission fluid. Not engine noises. That's good. Are they squeaky noises? Oh. Alright, well, something you can try is go to both wheels and try shaking them. That sounds funny. Not turning them, but shaking them. Um, if they shake, that means your ball joints have gone out, or something in the steering. Well, you still have transmission fluid, but you said it's not engine noises, so. But yeah, you might want to see if the best thing to do is get under the truck and see if anything's loose in the steering. So you have a sway bar that goes across. Then you have linkage that goes to the suspension, like your wheel hub will sit like this, and your shock will mount in there. You gotta make sure the shock isn't leaking. No, it's body noises. Well, then I think there's like 4 bolts that hold your cabin to your body. You might want to make sure those bolts are still good. But yeah, it's hard to diagnose over the internet. Oh, you own an automobile business. Hat trick. Where's this automobile business? I need an alignment on the old Mustang. So I've got Uno Mas story. Maine. Oh, good old Maine. That's where Stephen King writes all his creepy books. Bam. All right. Let's do this last story. Wait. Was there more? Maybe there's more. It's a series. I think there's more to this story. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I'll just read this one, and then we'll call it quits on the story and then pick back up on it. Aww. Poor Kikis. I'm sorry to hear that, bud. But, anyways. Yeah, that's sad. Here's the name of this one's the previous tenant to my new flat left a survival guide. Today, I finally meet her. No, met her. Yeah, she met her. Well, that makes sense. He lived in a neighboring town, I believe. He went to the same high school as I did. Well, that's pretty cool. So here it is. I didn't get much sleep last night either. The lack of sleep is making me wonder whether all these things happening to me are in my mind or not. But I'm reminded every day. I'm reminded every time I see the damn note that it's all real. I spent hours last night searching for anything I could about Prudence Hemmings. If she had lived in a big creepy mansion, I'd imagine she would have been easy to find. But us folk who live in the lower blocks aren't so well documented. No one cares about our lives. No matter How extraordinary. I found an article about a missing person, Leah Hemmings. It suggested that she went missing under the care of her grandmother while playing in the park opposite the flats early in the morning. Interviews with her parents stated that they had both disowned Prudence. Despite the many years that had passed since Leah's death/disappearance, her parents appeared to have remained unforgiven of Prue. There was no mention of her on their social media accounts, and she appeared to have no involvement with the children they had acquired since. Searches for the Hemmings family and the local area were equally dead ends. I looked at link after link, desperate to find something, but they all started to blur into one until I saw something. An obituary for Bernard Bernie Hemmings that had fallen from the lower block in an unexplained circumstances after being diagnosed with dementia months before his death. I was surprised it hadn't made bigger news. It had only been about a year. There were no details of where I could find them, but his wife Prudence and her sister Bridget were listed as contacts to find out details of the funeral. It's scary what you can do with the internet these days. But just with those phone numbers, I was able to put them in a reverse directory and find the address for Bridget and Tony Bishop, the sister and brother-in-law to Prudence was supposedly living with. About 4 a.m. I managed to get some sleep. Not much though. I was back up and wide awake around 7 a.m., planning my route and working out my day. I saw a post on social media from one of her relatives that Georgia was identified and is stable. This loosened the knot in my stomach that had been present since I found the note somewhat. At 8:50, I opened the door to my flat, hoping to see the postman Ian. 4 minutes had passed, and instead of the postman, an elderly gentleman made his way down the corridor. He had a walking stick and kind eyes. In his free arm he carried a small plastic bag containing newspaper and milk. He smiled and said good morning as he passed. I smiled back. He reminded me of my granddad. I imagined him pulling cola tubes from his pocket for his grandkids and shushing them when their parents weren't looking. A little further down the corridor, the old man stopped and turned. He looked me dead in the eyes with sympathetic expression and spoke. No post on Sunday, if that's what you're waiting for. He smiled knowingly and turned to unlock the front door that until shut I couldn't see the number of. When I saw the door close, the number 48 boldly displayed above the peephole, I understood what Prudence had meant. Mr. Prentice did seem to be a lovely chap. I sat back in the flat and sighed, staring at the various tabs open on my laptop. At about 9:15, the knocking on the balcony door started. The window cleaner was back. I didn't feel half as terrified as the first time. If anything, I was just angry. It took every ounce of restraint I had in my entire body not to engage with him, if only to tell him to fuck off. His genuine, seeming request just irritated me. After about 20 minutes of being watched and knocking started to give me a headache, so I grabbed a bag and left the flat. I decided there was no time like the present. If I was going to turn up on the bishop's doorstep looking for her sister because of the freaky flat she left behind, then I had to get it over with. If the address was old or the bishops weren't the people I was looking for, then I was going to look stupid whatever time of day I went. And I couldn't take the window cleaner's eyes anymore. There was something about them. They really do make you want to open the door. I looked at the lift as I entered the communal hallway and decided today that I would take the stairs. I couldn't stand to be in a small box that my partner probably died very painfully in. My heart dropped into my stomach just at the sight of it. The stairs were grody as the lift. We had taken them multiple times on move-in day, but I hadn't really seemed to take them in the same way I could now. I thought about the rules and all the strange things happening in this building. I looked at the badly painted numbers on the walls as I reached each landing. Nothing in this building is simple. I looked at the numbers 7, 6, 5, 5, 4, 3, 4, 2, G. Maybe it was a sleep deprivation, but my legs were in agreement with my mind that I had definitely just descended more than 6 flights of stairs. They'd glitched. I looked at the dusty and poorly lit stairway from the bottom. It seemed dark despite the sun pouring from the glass panel in the main hallway doors, or building doors. The note never mentioned glitchy stairs. Maybe I was just losing my mind. But as I turned to exit the building, a woman walked in. She was in her late 30s to early 40s and had 2 small children in tow, 1 boy and 1 girl. I guess that they were twins. They were both incredibly blonde, with deep brown puppy dog looking eyes. I couldn't have seen any older than 6 or 7. They were as close to identical as it gets in twins of different genders. I'm not a fan of kids, but they were super cute. The lady had a short bob haircut that got longer in the front. It was uniform and dyed a perfect, even auburn color. I knew it was dyed because her roots were blonde like her kids. She looked as tired as I felt, but she pulled herself together as she saw me, running her fingers through the part of her hair that she must have missed, however early she left this morning. "Hi, are you visiting?" Who opened with, trying to make small talk. "No, I just moved into flat 42 on the 7th floor. I was just leaving, actually. Whereabouts are you?" I was desperate to go. I had feared myself to see Prue, but I didn't want to be rude. "I'm flat 26. My name's Terry. This is Eddie and Ellie." She gestured to her 2 small children, hiding shyly behind her skirt. "Welcome to the block. If you ever need anything, please feel free to give me a shout. My name's Katie, but people call me Kat too." "That's really kind of you. Thank you. I will. Hey, is there something wrong with the stairs?" I stopped myself before going into detail. "Nothing wrong. They just skip sometimes," she answered, shrugging. "Well, I'd love to stop and chat, but I actually really need to get going. It was nice to meet you, Terry." I tried to work out what was wrong with the children as I stepped forward to the walkway, still baffled by the stairs. By the time we had a residence committee, you would come to one of our meetings. They're every. Sorry. Let me try that again. By the way, we have a residence committee. You should come to one of our meetings. They're every Tuesday in alternating flats. This Tuesday is at Molly Jefferson's place in flat 31. Come along. We'd love to have you, Terry suggested, waving me off. I walked out the doors after my encounter with Terry, feeling sick. Every minute in this place made the note more real. Every word jumped off the page and into my life, made it more likely that Jamie was really gone. I rode the bus from a stop not so far from the flat. It felt like it took an eternity to reach the little suburb area I was looking for. A 5-minute walk away from the bus stop, I got off and I was staring at a quaint little bungalow belonging to Bridget and Tony Bishop. I knocked on the door. The lady who opened it was unsteady on her feet. She was probably in her 70s. The wispy white hair neatly scraped back into a bun, 2 strands left hanging that just softened her wrinkled face. She wore a dusty rose-colored dress that hung just below her knees and smelled of stale cigarette smoke. "Can I help you?" she asked bluntly. "My name's Kat. I'm looking for Prudence Hemmings," I answered, stuttering slightly. Her eyes widened slightly. "Why?" she asked, bizarrely. "Is she here? It's private." The lady ushered me into the house and sat me down on the sofa. Within 5 minutes, there was a cup of tea in front of me. She didn't say anything to me for a while. We just looked at each other. Then she finally broke the silence. "I wondered if you'd try to find me. It took me a long time to decide whether to leave the note or not, but I decided that you deserved a head start. That's more than I ever got." The woman was Prudence. She was nothing like I had imagined. She seemed tough and hardened and spoke with mostly a blunt tone. She contributed before I could answer. "Terry called me not long ago, told me that she had met the new tenant. She said you looked shaken up and said that my note may not have been enough. I did say that I couldn't fit everything on there, and the stairs didn't seem too important. The committee wanted to organize a meeting with you on your moving in day, but I told them that was intrusive. The whole committee thing always seemed a bit excessive to me anyway." She spoke flippantly, like it was nothing. "It may have been intrusive, but we needed a warning. We spent a night in the place before I found your note. My boyfriend had already left for work at 3:15 and taken the lift. He didn't know." I broke as I told her what had happened. Her face dropped. And so did my hope for Jamie. "I'm so sorry. I really don't know what to say. I thought my note would reach you in time," she mumbled, her face to the floor, refusing to look up to me as tears streamed down my face. "He's gone now, isn't he?" I didn't want to accept it, but I spoke to the postman, and your face says all it needs to. The postman said there might be a way I can have him back. I bit at her, devastated and angry. "He's gone. You can't have him back. What Ian was referring to isn't what you think. There's a way to get people back from the lift, but not as themselves, trust me. I learned the hard way. Once they're back, you can't reverse it. I'm sorry about your man, but he's gone forever. Don't dig into the other way. to be gone forever is luckier than the alternative. She still wouldn't look up from the floor. What do you mean? I don't want to talk about it. I said in a note that there are things that I'd rather not discuss, that I need you to respect. That, or I won't be speaking to you at all. Now move on and ask what you need to ask. Prudence cut me off. I decided not to push the topic any further and moved on to the other things that I needed to know. What's the deal with Terry's kids? They seem sweet and normal. Those little demon creatures are nothing but normal, she answered, wincing slightly at the thought of them. When she went into labor, Terry made it to a hospital. They were the first children ever to be born inside the building. With everything that goes on, it's like something rubbed off on them. They're average children in the daytime, but they never sleep. Ever. Poor Terry hasn't had a day's rest since they were born. They also really love to steal birds and rats they find, and the cats playing with them and tormenting them really annoys the cats. As she finished speaking, a small hairless cat strutted from behind an armchair across the room, meowing softly. It brushed its head against Prue's exposed legs, leaving scorch marks where it touched. She didn't react. She reached down and stroked the top of its head, smiling as it purred. And those? I asked, eyes stuck to her now badly burned legs. She chuckled, pulled out a box and lit a cigarette. Fucking dogs. She chuckled, pulled out a box and lit a cigarette, tapping the top layer of the ash into a smaller silver dish in front of her. She offered me one, and I took it gladly. We've always been for good friends. I couldn't leave the building without bringing a part of the home with me. This little guy is Damon. He's seen some things. She gushed, not taking her eyes off the cat. But where do they come from? Why are they everywhere? I asked, watching in disbelief as her burns subsided. It seemed impossible, but I looked at my arms, where I picked up the cat the night before, and there was no evidence that it ever happened. They didn't ever appear sunburnt. They didn't even appear sunburnt. I'm sorry, guys. I'm having a real hard time here. This will be the last one. No one really knows. They started to appear after the fire, a few years after I'd moved in. It was rumored that they were the pets of the residents had burned, and that's why they had no fur. But I don't think that's true, I interrupted. I met one of the neighbors last night. She said her name was Natalia. She almost killed my best friend. You're crazy if you think your note was enough of a warning, I ranted emotionally. Look, girl, if I had to make a song and dance about warning you, then you would have thought me crazy and challenged the rules. You'd have been dead already. Be grateful you got anything. I didn't. I had to work it all out. Your generation, so spoiled, she tutted in frustration at me. I was angry, but she was probably right. An elderly lady telling me rat-like creatures would kill my boyfriend in a lift would probably have got some laughs from a few hours ago. I stayed quiet and waited for her to calm down. After a while, she sighed and started again. I think the cats are the neighbors that burned. They never meant any harm, and they hiss and run from the imposters that roam from the building. Besides, there's no way there were that many cats living on one floor. The imposters don't even match up with the residents that died in the fire. None of them look alike or claim to have the same name as the dead. They just claim to live in their flats. I've met Natalia before. She left a bad scar on Bernie's leg from an incident we had. Nasty girl. Before the fire, there was CCTV, and there was a recording saved of about 15 people marching into the flats and up to that floor about half an hour before the fire started. It was the only evidence found. CCTV wasn't great in the 80s, so they were never identified, and the flames melted the relevant cameras, so nothing ever came of it. I think the people that entered that night are the ones that asked for sugar. I don't know any more than that, but if you avoid them, like I said, then you don't need to know more. They hate the cats. I hope your friend survives, but I've seen what those people can do, so maybe she was better off dead. Prue carried off, stroking Damon. I wondered if the skin on her fingers would melt and twist as they made contact with him. What happened to your husband? I asked the question so fast I didn't have time to consider. That was a topic she had explicitly said she didn't want to discuss in the note, but I had to know. She scowled at me. I said I didn't want to talk about that, she hissed. I just lost the love of my life. I need some answers, I begged. What happened to Bernie won't help you. I know you'd think any deaths in that building would be down to the quirks, but it wasn't, for the most part anyways. Don't forget that we lived there for 35 years. Bernie knew the rules. He knew how to take care of ourselves and have a happy life there. It was our home. But I don't doubt that Miss Hemmings... I'm sorry, guys. I don't doubt that, Miss Hemmings. I'm so sorry, I interjected. Bernie had dementia. It started about 6 months before he died, and he deteriorated very rapidly. Towards the end, he started wandering. The doctors said it was common, but in our position, it was incredibly dangerous. More times than I can count, I pulled him away from the lift just in time, along with wondering if he was forgetting the rules. He let the smug, awful window cleaner in 3 times. Thank Lord for the metal pipe I kept by the balcony door. Chased him out a treat. Not that anything stops him from coming back. I'm sure you're already acquainted. After all the dangerous situation Bernie was in, by the time he made the smallest and most fatal of errors. He left a bowl of food out for Damon at 10 a.m. I was out shopping with Terry, and a few of the girls from the committee and I had come back to find one of those awful creatures. Prudence started to cry. I put my hand on her shoulder in an attempt to comfort her. After all, I truly knew how she felt. It was eating him, she sniffed, and steadied herself to continue, moving my hand. I chased the creature away with the same metal pipe I had, the window cleaner, and pushed Bernie off the balcony. He was heavy, but I didn't want anyone to know what really killed him. Its teeth, she shivered. They made such an awful noise. It's reminded me of Laya. I finished her sentence. I hadn't meant to. I was so interested in her story. I couldn't help it. I gather you spoke with Ian then? She said, sounding resigned. I never meant to hurt that little girl. I loved her so much. Tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks. Damon, who was now sat next to her on the sofa, shuffled closer as if to cuddle her. Haven't you ever been curious about getting her back? I asked, my mind turning back to the methods hinted by both Prue and the postman. I miss Jamie so much. I'd do anything to get him back. Her face filled with a look of horror and shame. Of course I have, she answered, which is exactly why I'm telling you not to. But I couldn't let it go. Surely anything must be better than gone forever, I postured. I wish I hadn't. Prudence, frustrated, stood up and gestured for me to follow. She led me outside to the back garden of the bungalow. At the back was a large shed, the kind people used for a man cave or a summer house. It was pretty. The sun shone down on it, lighting up the few cobwebs in the corners and making them twinkle. Miss Hemmings was careful to look in both the neighbors' gardens to ensure that no one was around before she unlocked the door to the shed. We stepped inside, and the first thing that hit me was the smell. It was putrid, like rotting meat. I looked at the floor, covered my nose with my hands. Staring back at me was a pool of blood. I followed the blood with my eyes as Prudence locked us in the shed. Then after I made it past the animal bones, I finally saw it, just like Postman Ian had described. One of the creatures was watching me from a heavy-duty metal dog cage in the corner of the shed. It looked reinforced, but still the metal claws had shoe marks. Their jaws had to be strong to cause that. That didn't surprise me looking at it. Its rodent-like nose and beady yet somehow human-like eyes were nothing compared to the two very visible rows of jagged, sharp teeth that lined each gum. Despite its small stature, it was terrifying. Prudence opened a drawer in a dusty cupboard across the room and pulled out a can of dog food. She poured the contents into the bowl and passed the bowl through the feeding hatch. The cage had a safety feature, meaning the animal couldn't access the food until the hatch was locked from the outside. I was grateful for this. Prue turned to me and spoke. She brushed one of her strands of hair framing her face behind her ear. Gesturing to the hideous creature, she said, "Cat, I would like to introduce you to my granddaughter, Leah." Alright, that's enough of that story. I think we're going to end it there, guys. Let's see how many more parts are to this story. One more. Two more. Jesus. Yeah, there's a lot more to this story. Yeah. So we'll do it tomorrow. I think maybe. Um, but I'm a little bit hungry. I'm gonna make me some toast, some peanut butter and jelly on toast, and yeah. So we've been going for about 2 hours and 20 minutes, almost 2.5 hours. Hey, Anthony's fishy friends. I want to thank everybody for stopping by. You're all awesome. I've got to finish some laundry and stuff and get ready for tomorrow. Good news. I have to wear a face mask, so I don't have to trim my face. I just have to pull all my hair back and not make it look so terrible. So, yeah. But anyways. Oh, man. Jesus, how many more parts of this story are there? Let me get to the end. There's still more. Is anybody out there? Oh, she stopped. They stopped updating the story. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 more parts of the story. So, alright guys. Well, I'm gonna end the stream. Maybe I'll make a ketchup, soy sauce, chili sauce, and strawberry jam sandwich. That sounds delicious. Oh. Hat Shake's still listening. Well, that's good. Alright guys, well I'm going to play some music. Yandere fell asleep. Yandere fell asleep pooping apparently. No, it's okay. Alright, well, I'm going to play some music. And for anybody that just wants some music, it'll be playing in the background. And I'll be in chat for a little bit. So, hell, cool. I've been a good boy. I've been going to bed at like 8:45, 9 o'clock at night, waking up at like 5, 6 in the morning. I finally got my sleep schedule back on track. But, alright, well, listening and drawing a buffalo butt. Buffalo butt. Buffalo soldier. Dread like a Rasta. Oh, I love that song. Well, alright, guys. So, enjoy some music. And that'll be all for today. Bye.